How was your deer season?
Actually, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I got a 4.5-year-old 8-point with a crossbow on Halloween evening, which was terrific. With our restrictive harvest regulations, I'm not normally picky. It just happened that I had a chance at this adult buck on Halloween evening and was successful in taking him. I hunted most of gun season, however, without filling my second tag. It just confirms how good bucks are at avoiding hunters. I had 3 stands and I had photos of adult bucks on all of those stands. And in fact, a number of different bucks showed up during the course of gun season. I was always in the wrong place. I had photos of bucks at those stands during daylight hours, but I was always somewhere else when they were there during legal shooting time. There was no shortage of bucks in the area. The fact that I used trail cameras was a major advantage. Even though I wasn't seeing the deer during legal shooting time, the cameras showed me that the bucks were there, mostly at night. And that's one of the factors that contributed to the poor success during the season is we had unseasonably warm weather that first week of gun season. I hunted the first 6 days of gun season without seeing a single deer. Not one. And I know other hunters had the same experience, but my camera showed me the deer were still there. They were feeding, coming in nocturnally after dark. And that was the second week of the season. We had some cold weather and snow. I started seeing deer. People who only hunted that first week of gun season had the lousy conditions, and it's not a surprise they didn't see many deer. But the weather conditions were the main factor contributing to low sightings, low success. And we're in the second year of a new mandatory registration system for deer. Hunters looked at those numbers, assuming everybody who killed a deer registered their animals, which is false. The DNR does an annual mail survey of deer hunters. For the first year of the mandatory registration, they determined that 14% of the hunters who were successful did not register their deer. It could have been the same this year, or it could have been higher. So those numbers, registration numbers, are a minimum number. They're not accurate. It's an estimate. The same as the mail survey has been an estimate. A lot of hunters were looking at those numbers as the final word on the harvest, and that's not true. But everyone agrees deer numbers are down in the Upper Peninsula. There's no doubt about it, but there's 4 main factors contributing to that.
Today's Discover the UP podcast is brought to you by Big Valley Ford, Dodge Chrysler Jeep in Ewan, Michigan.
Our severe winters is top of the list. Restrictive harvest regulations in the UP that result in trying to carry too many deer through our severe winters. When you try and carry too many deer through severe winters, it increases winter losses and does extreme damage to the winter habitat. All of the deer in the UP from 14,000 square miles, whatever it is, are crammed into 17% of that land base during the winter. That's 17% of winter habitat. If you put too many deer in there, many of them are not going to survive. That's why it's important for hunters to harvest as many deer as they can during fall hunting seasons. It increases the chances of the remaining deer surviving those winters, even a severe one. But we've had what's called hunter's choice regulations in effect since 2008, protecting for hunters who buy a combination deer license. Both tags are restricted, spikes and forks are protected. With our severe winters, those regulations don't work. And the fact that we have reduced deer numbers confirms that. And many of those deer that hunters are forced to pass up have died during those severe winters. We had a predator-prey study in the UP in 3 different snowfall zones. The mid-snowfall zone, the study was conducted in Iron County between 2012 and 2015. They had baited trail camera sites at 64 locations within that Iron County study area from those 4 years, 2012 to 2015. The number of antlered bucks photographed at those 64 sites decreased by 76% between 2012 and 2015 because of severe winters. There were 752 adult bucks photographed at those 64 sites during 2012. By 2015, the number of adult bucks photographed at those 64 locations was 152, or 178, a 76% decline. And that occurred all over the UP. That was just one area where solid data was collected. A lot of hunters ignore that. The impact severe winters has is dramatic, and those numbers reflect that. But Forester Stu Boren from Florence, Wisconsin, documented winter loss in a cutting, 66-acre cutting that was just across the Menominee River in Wisconsin last winter. He found 12 winter-killed deer in that cutting, and 4 of them were adult bucks, 4 were adult does, and 4 were fawns. 3 of those 4 adult bucks that died during the winter were 3.5 years old. One of those 4 bucks was 1.5 years old. And the impact of severe winters most hunters don't understand is it reduces fawn survival. Stu happened to have an adult doe near his home in Florence. He observed when she gave birth to twin fawns on June 25th of 2023. Neither of those fawns survived. They were stillborn. There's a tremendous loss in fawn production because of severe winters when fawns don't develop enough, reach a certain weight, 6 to 8 pounds, before they're born. Stu said these 2 stillborn fawns were very small, so they didn't achieve the weight they should have for survival. So winter impacts are major. We had a major snowstorm in early May after a long winter. That had major impact. The last deer that Stu found that died during the winter was an 8-year-old doe. She died in mid-April. You know, the winter just hung on too long.
Today's Discover the UP podcast is brought to you by Hardcore Outfitters of Iron Mountain.
And predation is another important factor in reducing deer numbers. We've got black bears, wolves, coyotes, bobcats. That predator-prey study showed what impact those predators have on fawn survival. In the Iron County study, black bears were shown to have almost as much impact on fawn survival, fawn mortality, as coyotes. A lot of people want to blame wolves for our low deer numbers, and they certainly kill deer. Black bears kill as many deer, if not more, than wolves, something a lot of people ignore. Black bears have been a part of the UP for many years. The fact that wolves are new, relatively new compared to black bears, they tend to blame wolves. However, when you add mortality from black bears on top of mortality from wolves and coyotes and bobcats, it becomes more significant. So it's all additive. Winter loss reduces fawn mortality, fawn survival. Predators reduce recruitment of fawns. And when you have terrible winter habitat that's damaged by carrying too many deer by restrictive hunting regulations, those all combine to reduce our deer population.
So, I mean, there's definitely too many predators on the landscape.
And we can do something about black bears. The number of bear licenses issued by the Department of Natural Resources is almost cut in half since 2012. They were issuing 12,000 bear licenses in the state in 2012, 2011, something like that. Now, for this year, we're going to have 6,000 some bear licenses issued in the state. And not all of those people who draw tags and buy licenses hunt. in the last few years, there's only been 5,000 some bear hunters in the state who actually hunt. We need to issue more bear licenses to better manage our bear population, taking into account data from the predator-prey study that shows what impact black bears have on fawn survival. In the Iron County study, coyotes were determined to have responsible for 21% of fawn mortality, and black bears 19%, almost the same. Black bears have more impact on fawn survival than most people realize. John Azoga, retired deer researcher, used to work at the Cusino Wildlife Research Station, is one of the first people who documented the impact black bears can have on fawn survival. He had yearling black bears get inside that 1 square mile enclosure 2 different years. One weighed 66 pounds and one weighed 100 pounds. One of those, he figures, killed 9 fawns before he was able to trap it. I was part of a study in Alger County where researchers walked with bears to watch what they did, what they ate. And one of those adult females was observed killing 6 fawns one year. And somebody wasn't with her all the time. She certainly could have killed more than that. When you add up, we have a minimum of 10,000 adult bears that are at least a year old in the UP. Add it up. It's 30 to 50,000 minimum that bears kill fawns every year. That has a major impact. When there were no wolves or few wolves in the UP, that wasn't a major impact. But when you add predation from wolves on coyotes and bears all together, it becomes more cumulative and has a bigger impact.
Yeah, I mean, until the wolf is delisted, I mean, there's nothing you can do about them, but there's something you do about
The black bear.
and the coyotes, I guess.
Well, coyotes are open for hunting year-round. There isn't a whole lot we can do there other than increased hunting effort. But coyotes are very productive, and there is an opportunity for hunters to harvest as many of them as they want to. There's no bag limit. What we need to do is increase bear licenses, increase the bear harvest somewhat to reduce their impact on the deer population in the UP.
Definitely, yeah, I never did understand their reasoning for decreasing the amount of bear tags. They tried explaining it to me, I didn't get it.
Well, our success for bear hunting has gone up to 39%. I think it was 2022 or 2023. The average success on bears is up to 39%. That's extremely good, but we don't need success that high. We could issue more licenses. Even 30% success is excellent. I think that's important for hunters to understand the impact bears have on the deer population and to support and lobby for more bear licenses to better manage our bear and provide more recreational opportunity and more revenue for the DNR. And we know they can use the revenue.
Today's Discover the UP podcast is brought to you by Cooking Wild Seasonings.
I mean, obviously, as far as like, you know, the antler point restrictions and stuff, what would you like to see like the DNR or NRC do to help that?
Well, making antlerless deer legal for bow hunters, again, like it was prior to 2015, would be a major step in providing more recreational opportunity, more harvest opportunity for UP hunters. Making one tag unrestricted on combo UP deer licenses. And the DNR recommended these changes, but they were rejected by the Natural Resources Commission. I think it was 2021, the DNR recommended going to one unrestricted tag on UP combo licenses. And there's no reason to have 2 buck tags that are restricted. Prior to 2008, yearling bucks, spikes and forks, all antlered bucks were legal to every deer hunter who bought a deer license. And we had over 100,000 deer hunters prior to 2008. We have just over 70,000 deer hunters in the UP now. There's no reason, and we had plenty of adult bucks prior to 2008. When everyone who chose to could shoot a spike or fork if they wanted to. The regulation is unnecessary, and it results in trying to carry too many deer through the winter, results in higher winter losses and destruction of the winter habitat. Because of all the damage from trying to carry too many deer through winters, our winter habitat is not capable of supporting as many deer as it did. That's why we have fewer deer.
Obviously, yeah, the habitat is an issue, and the quality of the habitat, as I've been reading, is, not what it once was.
Exactly. This winter is not going to be an issue. It's very mild. We went through January, the first week of January, with very little snow on the ground. That's a major benefit to the deer population. This winter is not going to have the impact that a severe winter would, which is great. It's going to benefit the deer population, increase survival during the winter, and increase fawn production this year, which is terrific.
Well, people, they say, when you look on Facebook and stuff, they're like, we've had severe winters forever. They don't buy the whole severe winter methodology.
But we had better winter habitat in those years, and we didn't have as many predators that are impacting the deer population as we do now.
Today's Discover the UP podcast is brought to you by BAM Tools.
When was the golden age, we say, of deer hunting in the UP?
1985 to 1995. Terrific. We had mild winters during that decade, and the deer population increased. In fact, the peak was in 1995. We had record deer numbers in the UP, and by then, most UP hunters realized the necessity of harvesting antlerless deer, and we had decent antlerless deer quotas. However, it was too little, too late. The winters of 95, 96, and 96 and 97, back to back, two severe winters, we lost more than 300,000 deer during those two winters. And that was the minimum numbers. We had very high deer numbers going into the winter of 95, 96, and there's no way, even with supplemental feeding, we lost a tremendous number of deer. There were some areas that were so severely impacted by those winters that there were no deer or very few deer remaining in areas where hunters had done well prior to that. That shows the impact that severe winters can have.
Supplemental feeding, I know that's kind of a hot topic as well. Some people say that's, the DNR is against supplemental feeding. In the winter, they say it harms the deer population. Some people say we need it because there's reduced habitat.
Well, certainly it's legal now to supplementally feed deer during the winter in the UP, which is, I think, a good thing. But that supplemental feeding doesn't reach all of the deer. It reaches a fraction of the deer where hunters have the opportunity to put food available for deer. It doesn't impact the entire deer population. You can't supplementally feed all of the deer. The best supplemental food for deer during the winter is cuttings. If cuttings can be planned in or near deer yards during the winter, that's the best supplemental food they can have. It's food they're used to utilizing and benefits them, helps them carrying through the winter.
By cuttings, you mean from logging?
Logging, exactly. Years ago, when the DNR tried to increase the deer population, they did cuttings on state-owned lands that weren't actually logging operations, but they were primarily to benefit deer. Cutting trees in yards to produce food for them. And as I said, that's the best supplemental food for the UP deer. I think that covers it for the most part. Hunters, because of the unseasonably warm weather and windy conditions during the first week of gun season, a lot of people went into the hunt suspecting low deer numbers to begin with. And when they didn't see any that first week, a lot quit hunting. And that reduced the harvest as well. The mental game, the mental attitude going into deer hunting is very important. when you're using trail cameras and you see deer, you know they're there on the cameras, even though you're not seeing them when you're hunting. That keeps your spirits up. It kept mine up during gun season, even though I wasn't seeing anything the first 6 days. I knew they were there. It's just they were mostly nocturnal. But a lot of hunters quit hunting that first week when they weren't seeing deer. They were thinking deer weren't there. If they weren't using trail cameras, they didn't know how many deer actually were there. And the lack of snow during that first week of gun season made a difference too. When we have snow on the ground, if you're not seeing deer in one location, you can scout around and find deer tracks where the animals are and where they're traveling. Increase your chance of success. When we don't have snow, it's difficult to do that.